Good evening. On the consent agenda before you have a report and recommendation for replacement of unit number 367, which is 2000 Terramite excavator, and a purchase of a new Kubota tractor for street operations. You have a report and recommendation for award of contract to Artisan Skate Parks for design and construction at Yale Meadow Park. You have approval of structure demolition at 1334 Old Fredericksburg Road. You have a report and recommendation for Second Amendment option agreement with People Incorporated related to the transfer of tax parcel number 41A14Y7, treasurer's reports, and then minutes of the previous meetings.
All right, thank you. 701, public forum. The public forum is...
Approve the consent agenda. Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I don't know what happened. So we'll get it. 701, public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for town citizens, visitors, and groups to speak or bring to our attention any town government-related issues. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. For groups present, you are requested to have a spokesman. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this time? No one? Close public forum at this time. 801, Mr. Yao.
Yes. I move that council appoint David C. Dewey to the Joint Planning Advisory Committee to fill an unexpired term ending June the 30th, 2025, and I move that council reappoint Miriam Sesse to the Joint Planning Advisory Committee for a new 5-year term expiring June the 30th, 2028.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. 901A, public hearing of proposed FY24 budget amendment. Had.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Tonight we have a public hearing for a proposed amendment to the fiscal year 2024 budget. There are 2 agenda items, if adopted by council tonight, would result in an increase in the fiscal year 24 town budget of $2,625,000, which represents 4.5% of the adopted budget, and thus requires a public hearing before approval of those items.
All right. At this time, I'd like to open the floor for public hearing. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone like to speak? No one? Closing the floor for public hearing. 901A, 1, RR, reference approval of FY24 electric rates increase. Had.
Thank you. Tonight, we have a report and recommendation before council regarding a proposed increase of the electric utility rates for the town. If you'll recall, at the time of the adoption of the fiscal year 24 budget, staff mentioned to council that there were likely significant increases in purchase power costs coming from the town's power supplier, which is VMEA, and which negotiates the purchase of power from Dominion Electric. And at the time, staff opted not to include those increases in the fiscal 24 budget because there were negotiations still ongoing as to what the final costs were going to be for fiscal 24, And while we expected there to be an increase, we didn't want to have to do multiple resolutions or rate adjustments for this to council and for the ratepayers. So at the time, we didn't include them. At this point, we are more certain that there are going to be approximately $2.6 million of increased purchase power costs through VMEA to the town of Culpeper based on power rates set by Dominion. And so for that, this report and recommendation will include a proposed $2.6 million increase to the budget for purchase power costs. On the other side, as a result of that, it results in the need for proposed increase of electric utility rates. And this chart shows that at the time we discussed the budget, the total average cost for a typical residential customer using 1,000 kilowatt hours per month was $156. Council at the time adopted the fiscal year 24 budget with a 1% electric rate increase, which would have resulted in a $1.23 increase to $157.69. After that, the fuel surcharge rate, which is a component of the rate that's billed to customers through the electric utility, was actually reduced by $0.015 per thousand, which results in a $15.12 reduction that has been passed through to utility customers, and that was back in May of 2003. So customers are already enjoying that reduction of the fuel cost rate. Currently, staff put the proposed increased cost into a rate model, and if I flip ahead a little bit, in that rate model, we try to project long-term rates out in a 15-year model to try to make sure we have proper reserves in place for the electric utility for a number of reasons. And that reserve, to meet that reserve level, which the upper line is the optimal reserve level, would have required an additional 10% rate increase as our reserves are currently set in the policy. Because of such a large increase, staff looked at ways to reduce the reserve levels through the policy and propose potential changes to the reserve policy, which is also before council this evening, if so chosen. And that would reduce the required reserve levels. So you'll see the red line, which is the optimal reserves, is now below the green line, the long-term potential reserves with a 10% rate increase. And as a result, with the policy change to the reserve, we're able to have an 8% rate increase on the electric utilities as opposed to 10% if council so chooses. Going back, we're comfortable with doing that because the town reserves, you'll see over the past 5 years, the first column representing the minimum reserves and the second column representing the optimal reserve. You'll see in fiscal 2018 and 19, town was actually below the minimum reserve level. But in the last 3 years, 20, 21, and 22, the town is actually now exceeding the minimum reserve level. So the reserves are increasing and are at an acceptable level. Also, just to show you, over the last 10 years, rate increases for the electric utility have ranged anywhere from 0 to 3%, with an average 10-year increase of 1.4%. So town staff and with council's approval does everything we can to keep the rate increases as low as possible for the electric utility customers. And to point out, with a 10% rate increase, even after the reduction of the fuel adjustment surcharge that happened in May, electric utility customers would still have a $1.61 on average lower bill, and with an 8% rate increase would be $4.07 lower bill to where we were back in April prior to the adoption of the new year's budget. So had they happened at the same time, the fuel surcharge reduction and the rate increase as a result of the increased costs, it would be an overall net reduction to the customer's bill from where we were just a few months ago. And one last slide, just to show you, if there is no rate increase and we keep the reserves policy as is, you'll see in 15 years, the green line representing the cash reserves would essentially go negative. And so that would not be a tenable situation for the electric utility fund. So having said all that, the recommendation before council is that council adopts resolution R 2023012, setting the electric rates for fiscal year '24 with an 8% rate increase, effective August 1st, 2023, and authorizes the mayor and town clerk to execute the document. Further, that council approves an increase in revenue line 50090000432220 metered sales electric in the amount of $2.6 million, and a corresponding increase in the expenditure line 56620 electricity purchased VMEA of the same amount, $2.6 million. And finally, that council approves the amended reserves policy that's before you. Be glad to answer any questions.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when did we start the rate model study? I mean, has it been going, 10 years, 15 years?
Have we been using the rate
Yeah.
model?
I mean, in the current form?
In the current form, it's been used since prior to my arrival, I think back to 2013 or 14.
Right.
And it's proven to be, it's proven to be a useful tool to us
Right.
without a lot of deviation.
Okay, so after 10 years, reevaluating is probably a good thing anyway.
Well, we evaluate every year. We look out 15 years, but we redo the model every year to ensure we're still on track.
Okay, but this recent evaluation brought it down from, what was the catalyst for bringing it down from a 10% increase to an 8% increase, meaning that we could relook what our end 15-year goal is?
The catalyst for changing the increase amount from 10%, which is in the model, which would have been in the existing model with
Right.
the existing reserve policy, was to try to benefit the electric utility customers
Right.
with a lower increase. And we found that we were able to do that by making a change in the reserve policy
Right.
threshold. So if I may, going back to here, the upper limit, the lower limit of the reserves was about 11.5 million out 15 years, and the upper limit was closer to 19 million. And if we decrease that with a slight change in the reserve policy, we can bring the lower limit down to about 10 million and the upper limit to about 14 million. So basically reducing the reserves over 15 years by $5 million at both the low end and the high end, which allows us to pass through a lower rate increase at this time.
Okay, but we're achieving the same goal, the same
Yeah.
target.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
okay.
Well, we're achieving the same target of maintaining reserves
Right.
at an appropriate level for the fund.
Okay. Did you interrupt me? Thank you.
We discussed all this in committees anyway, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
all right. All right,
Any other
Good.
questions? No?
all right. Motion to approve the recommendation.
So moved.
Well, how many motions are there here? Because we're, I just have a question on that.
Well, I'll come to that when we do this, in the discussion. She done already made the motion, so I need a second.
All right, I'll second for discussion.
All right, any discussion?
Yeah, just a question for clarification. So the
Mhm.
motion then, so moved, in abbreviated form, is setting the electric rate at 8% and approving an amended reserve policy. So it's two pieces. Okay, good. We can do that with one motion. Okay, good.
Right. Roll call?
Councilmember Brown,
Aye.
Councilmember Kalanga,
Aye.
Mayor Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramikis,
Aye.
Councilmember Schmidt,
Aye.
Councilmember Short,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yao.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. 9.02A, submission of quarterly reports. Any questions or comments? No one? All right. Let's go to 9.03A, RR, reference amending Chapter 8, the Town Code for fireworks, second reading. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you recall, this is the second reading of this ordinance amendment. This would add to the Town Code, Chapter 8, language prohibiting the discharging of fireworks indoors. And so the recommendation before you this evening is that you hold this second reading and adopt ordinance number O-2023-006, amending Chapter 8 of the Town Code by amending Article 3 related to fireworks, and authorizes the mayor and clerk to execute the document. Be happy to answer any questions council may have.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Brown,
Aye.
Councilmember Kalanga,
Aye.
Mayor Reed,
Aye.
Councilmember Ramikis, Councilmember Schmidt,
Aye.
Councilmember Short,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Yao.
Aye.
Motion carries.
10.01, monthly report. Is there any questions on the town manager's monthly report? No questions? If don't nobody have anything, anyone have anything else? If not, we are adjourned.